All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today for our Info2Go session. Our session today is NASA at My Library, and today's webinar is brought to you by the Idaho Commission for Libraries with sponsorship from the Institute of Museum and Library Services, IMLS. And our presenter today is Dina Brown. Dina is the Emerging Trends Consultant with the Idaho Commission for Libraries. So Dina, take it away.
Hello, thanks everyone for joining today. I'm the Emerging Trends Consultant, and I'm also the lead on the NASA at My Library program. And I'm excited to be bringing space science to Idaho libraries. And today we're gonna cover some of the basics of the program and get a little bit into the nitty-gritty of the kits. So feel free to type any questions that you have in the chat box as we go along, but there will also be time for Q&A at the end. So let's get started. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about the supporters of the program and how the NASA at My Library program came to be. I want to make you all aware of the resources that Starnet has available to you. There's some really cool stuff that they've put out there for libraries to use. Most of you, I imagine, are familiar with the A Universe of Stories theme for this summer, which makes complete sense based on some of the great events that are going to be happening this summer around space science. Then we'll take a look at what's actually in the kits, and I will share, I think it's like a 5-minute video that walks you through some of the kit activities. There's one for each of the 2 kits that we have, but I'll just share one of them today, and I'll point you to where you can go find the other one for later. And speaking of pointing you to where you can find it later, we'll take a tour of the ICFL NASA at My Library site, where there's lots of resources that you can use with the kits or without the kits. I'll go through some tips about borrowing the kits if you already have a reservation or if you're hoping to make one down the road. I am sorry to inform you that all of the spots for the summer are full, but that brings me to my last bullet point, which is a lot of the activities in the kits you can actually do without having the kit at your library. So we'll take a look at some of the activities that you might be able to do kind of on the fly at your own library. So let's get started by taking a look at the NASA at My Library program and who all is involved in it. So as you can see, there are a lot of different entities that have helped make this program a reality. And a big one is Starnet, which is Science, Technology, Activities, and Resources for Libraries. And they have collaborated with chief officers of state library agencies this year. And fortunately, Idaho and ICFL is one of 14 state library agencies that was selected to be part of the NASA at My Library program this summer. NASA is also someone that is obviously supporting the program, and all of these folks came together to kind of vet the content of the kits and make sure that they align with learning standards and that they're also something that makes sense for libraries to be able to put out in their programming worlds. So this is content that has had a lot of people taking a look at it from a lot of different perspectives. So I think it's a really rich resource for libraries across the US, and specifically here in Idaho this year, we have the kits. So Starnet is the lead as far as giving support for the program. And what the map is there is this year they are doing a Summer of Space. And I highly encourage you to go and register for this. Just to clarify, this is completely separate from CSLP's A Universe of Stories. So in collaboration with that, Starnet is running a Summer of Space program, and you can see on the map that's there, those are libraries that have already gone and registered, and registering gets you signed up for a monthly newsletter that's going to keep you in the loop as far as events that are going on throughout the summer. if there's upcoming webinars, there are going to be, NASA and Starnet are hoping to have some downlinks that would be available for libraries to perhaps talk to an astronaut out in space. There's even talk of doing some sort of recreation of the landing on the moon. So highly encourage you to sign up for that. The other cool thing they're doing is they are giving away stuff. So you can win one of 2 telescopes. They're giving away a whole bunch of the tactile books. And if you aren't familiar with those are books that are designed for folks that are blind or visually impaired, and they have relief to them. So they're a thin sheet of plastic that has been kind of vacuum formed over a mold. And folks that are blind or visually impaired can run their fingers over these pages that have Braille and then also have raised areas for things like the lunar craters. They're really cool books, and I've got to say, I know they were designed for people that are blind and visually impaired, but I have had sighted students love getting to take a look at them as well, because they can offer kind of a different perspective on some of the content that is available with the kits. It's also a great way to have sighted learners gain some insight into how blind or visually impaired learners engage with material. So they're a lot of fun. And then Scholastic is another partner that is provided a number of books that they'll be giving away as part of the Summer of Space. So I highly encourage you to sign up on there. I think we're around 3,500 libraries across the US, and Starnet would love to get that up to 4,000. So see what you can do to help out with that. There is also the STEM Activity Clearinghouse, which has a wealth of resources, and I'll go into that a little further in a moment, but you can think of that as your programming one-stop shop for access to content that supports programs that you might have in your library around STEM and space science activities. So we'll take a look at that in a little bit as we get more into some of the hands-on components and thinking about running some of these programs out at your own library. So Starnet has also collaborated with CSLP this year, and I think this is a really exciting time to have this theme because a universe of stories makes complete sense, because the summer is the 50th anniversary of the Apollo moon landing. Woohoo! So NASA has a variety of resources that they have put out there to help celebrate this. It is also NASA's, it's their 60th anniversary, not their 50th birthday. And so they are also celebrating their own birthday with a variety of activities. So the first 2 that are on there will take you to websites that have things like posters that you could download and print off, activities that you might want to do specifically around the moon landing. And the second link that's on there is more of an interactive site and could potentially be something that you just have up on a laptop that could be sort of some passive programming that you maybe have available. And I know that we're putting some of the links in the chat window as I go through them, but also not to worry because all of the links will be available with the slides as well. So the 50th anniversary of the moon landing is July 20th. And I know that a number of libraries across the state have things planned for that anniversary. So why not join in the fun and plan something yourself? Starnet has also specifically put together a list of programs that relate to the Universe of Stories theme this year. And what you're looking at is a screenshot of what that database looks like. So on the left-hand side, there are a variety of ways that you can limit your search. So you can do it by age group, how long you have, prep time, you know, did somebody cancel and all of a sudden you're having to come up with a program on the fly? Then you can definitely have one of those 5 minutes or under ones that would definitely work. So there's a variety of ways on the left that you can limit your search. And then the bulk of the page is the links to the activities and a brief description that'll hopefully give you enough of a teaser to give you an idea if it's something that you are wanting to run in your library or not. So let me go over and actually go to a live web page. So let me see about scooting over to a browser window. So as I scroll down on the left, like I was saying, there's time to prepare. There's also the cost. So if you're looking for something that's really low cost, there are a number of activities that fit that bill. I think mess level is something we can all relate to, something that is important from time to time, and different content areas. So I want to go into one of these activities to give you a sense of how much support material there is for it. So let's take a look at Jump to Jupiter. So I'm going to click on Check It Out. And notice that there's a how-to video link. There's a teacher's guide. The great thing about these resources is a lot of times they are connected to science standards, which can be great for school librarians and I think even librarians in public libraries and certainly in academic libraries as well. If we scroll down on the page, there are links to other resources that are suggested to supplement the activity. It shows you where the idea originally came from. And then there's also some book suggestions, which is super handy. So you can see if you've got those in your collection or if you have time, you might even think about buying them beforehand. So if I actually open the activity, it's going to take me to a step-by-step guide on how to do the Jump to Jupiter activity. And this is part of what you will find in the supporting documentation for each of the activities that are in the NASA at My Library kits. And I'll show you how to get to those in a little bit. But as you can see, it's got some really detailed information about what you need, how you're going to prepare, some information that you might need as the facilitator as far as what the distance is between the different planets. And if there are any things that needed to be printed out, those would be included here as well. Some of the other activities, there's a chart, here we go. A chart that they fill in, or this one's kind of fun, there's a poem that they can fill in as they complete the activity. So lots of resources available to you for going through and engaging with the clearinghouse at Starnet. So let's go back over to my slides. And let's talk a little bit about what's in the kits. These kits are great. What's in them? So there's 2 different kits that libraries in public libraries in Idaho can borrow, and there are 2 copies of each kit. So that's the A and the B. So there's Kit 1A and Kit 1B. And Kit 1 is about the Sun, Earth, Moon connections. And the way that I explain this to folks is that the Kit number 1 is really more about some foundational knowledge as it relates to thinking about the connections between the sun, the earth, and the moon. So the sizes of different planets, the temperatures of them, some basic ways that you might investigate some of those concepts. And there's a variety of activities that are in there, including modeling meaningful eclipses, the UV Kid, sorting games, Jump to Jupiter, Sinoculars, and then there's also a series of books. So what I'm going to do is I'm just really going to pop back over to another window, and I want to show you, we're going to watch the first few minutes of a video that gives you kind of an unboxing of the kit. And there's one of these for each of the kits. So let's go take a look at what that looks like for kit number 1.
Dina, we're not getting any audio with that.
Oh, no audio, hold on. Let's try that again. I forgot to click my little boxes at the bottom. Here we go.
Hello, my name is Sarah, and I'm with the NASA at My Library project and Cornerstones of Science. Today we're going to get you started with the Sun, Earth, Moon Connections Kit, brought to you through your state library agency and the NASA at My Library project. So let's see what's in this kit for you. First off, there's this wonderful facilitation guide that you will use to help you through the activities and learn more about the science tools and presenting to your patrons about how the sun, earth, and moon affect each other and affect us. In this facilitation guide, there's a great checklist and some NASA mission highlights and a survey that we hope that you will use at the end to let us know more about how this kit has been helpful to you. All right, let's get started with what activities are in the kit. First off, there's a wonderful activity called Modeling Meaningful Eclipses. You may know it as yardstick eclipse as well. And you will set your yardsticks up to have an earth and a moon. And you'll be able to present how there are solar eclipses and lunar eclipses, all right? So one way is a solar eclipse during the day where you'll want to have the moon make a shadow onto the earth. And if your sun is kind of over here, you can go outside with the sun or use kind of a spotlight, or you can show lunar eclipses, how they work at night and how the earth will make a shadow onto the moon. So fun activity, and can be done with multiple people because you have 5 sets of these in your kit, and a great one again for youth and adults. All right, great. The next activity is called UV Kid, and yes, it sounds like a kid activity, and it definitely can be. You're going to receive your chenille sticks, your pony beads, and some UV beads, and fun activity to work with youth and families to understand how ultraviolet light affects our bodies. So these ultraviolet beads right here will change colors when they're exposed to sunlight. And then when they're not exposed, you'll have to find out what they what they look like then too. But just know you can also change this activity to make bracelets or keychains, so that it might be more effective around teens and adults as well. Another activity is the sorting games. Now this can be an active or a passive program in your library. You have these cards. These are actually the answer sheets here, and the cards are here. You'll have 9 different cards for how big, how far, and how hot, right? And it's really fun to see how people kind of sort themselves on what they think on how big things are and how far things are. And the most challenging one is how hot. And I did not know how hot lightning was. Maybe you did, but I did not. So great fun activity. Again, showing how, things things are affected between one another, different scale models. These are all fun activities. The final activity is Jump to Jupiter. Again, a wonderful scale model for not only the distances of our objects in our solar system, but the size of objects in our solar system. So this one does both, but you can kind of decide how you want to do these activities. Again, you can jump to Jupiter if you have some youth in your programs, or you can maybe just stride to Earth, maybe if you have more adults in your program, or stride to Jupiter as well. But make it work for your audience. So these are fun. You have your pomegranate, the size, which is kind of the size of your sun, and then you have other objects that represent the other objects within our solar system. So again, a fun activity to look at the distances and the size of things in our solar system. The science tool that you'll receive with this kit is the Sunoculars. Now these are for ages 13 and up, so again, an older audience, but these can be really fun to look at sunspots or even eclipses, solar eclipses during the day. And you may think that these are broken when you first receive them because it is very dark when you look through them. The only time you'll be able to see anything is when you're directly looking at the sun with these Sunoculars. So the best way to do that is make sure that they kind of fit your eyes by turning these here. And then you'll want to put your hand up where the sun is. You can kind of locate the sun, but don't look directly at the sun with your eyes. And then once you kind of bring your Sunoculars up, you can move your hand away and make some adjustments to the eyepieces here, or making sure again that they're kind of fitting your eyes. You can log sunspots over time, again, or look at a solar eclipse with these. So these can be really fun, but making sure you're taking a little bit extra precaution and have the right age audience to use these. Finally, we have a couple of books with the kit. The Moon Bear's Shadow, a great book, again, how the sun affects us and how we may not know how that happens. Great books for younger audiences and for story time. And then Dr. Seuss, Oh Say, Can You Say What's the Weather Today? You also receive a tactile book about the lunar craters, moon's craters, and it's a great way to bring in education through in a tactile way, very different way. All right, so also with the facilitation guide, you can find some great links to all these activities. There's videos. You can find web links where you might be able to purchase some of these activities if that's something you want to do later. And really hope that you give us feedback with the survey. So thank you so much from the NASA at My Library team and your state library agency.
All right, so that gives you a little bit of some insight into what the kits have in them. Let me go back to my slides. So any questions about what's in that first kit? Feel free to type them in the chat box, but I'll talk a little bit about what's in the second kit. So I had us view the video for the first kit because the video for the second kit is about twice as long because there are some slightly more technical pieces of equipment in there. The second kit comes with a telescope, some binoculars, and some scales, some infrared thermometers. There's all sorts of cool tools that are in that second kit. And along with, just like the first kit, there's also the facilitator guide that kind of shows you how to use all of those tools. And a video similar to the one that we just watched that gives you a brief introduction to them and hopefully gives you enough information to kind of get started and dive in. But the second kit really is about kind of using those scientific tools. And I think a lot of times science is presented as something that other people do with really technical equipment that perhaps the general public doesn't really feel a sense of connection with. And so I really like that this kit has tools that people probably have around their house, and maybe they just don't think of them as ways to investigate things in a scientific method. So lots of people have a scale in their house. That's definitely a scientific tool. Thermometers, maybe even binoculars that folks have laying around. So my hope is that with the tools in these kits, that they'll also encourage attendees at your programs to take a look at the things that they already interact with, maybe on a day-to-day basis in a different way. So a couple of my favorite activities from kit number 2 are the pocket solar system. This is one that would be a really easy one to do even if you don't have the kit. All you need is receipt tape, some colored pencils, and that's it. It can be a program that you can do pretty quick, maybe 15, 20 minutes if you really want to speed through it, but it's something that I feel like you could also have extend out to full hour if it needs to. The other one that I love is the lunar phases. This one, we don't provide any materials because the materials that you need are Oreo cookies or any chocolate cookie that has a cream filling in the middle. And this one's a lot of fun because you get a snack at the end, but also what you do is you scrape off the frosting to learn about the different phases of the moon. And I don't know about anyone else if you've done this program before, but first time I did it, I realized I was never going to look at Oreo cookies the same way again. So there's also a great series of books that are provided with kit number 2. One of them is a Shine a Light Through book, and there is a flashlight that's provided. And if you aren't familiar with the series of books, they're a lot of fun for story time because one side of the page has a color image and asks a question. And then when you shine the flashlight through the page from the back, a whole other layer of imagery is exposed, and you can see it through from the front of the page. So it could be a great way to have attendees at story time take turns coming up and shining the flashlight through for everyone else to have a look at what the secret image is that's behind. So that's a really brief introduction into what is in the kits. Let's go and have a look at the website where you can go and find out more information about the kit. So this is the ICFL page for the program. So let me bring that up and swap over to that other browser window. All right, so we've got the landing page for the NASA at My Library program. You can get here either directly from the link that is in the slides or from the ICFL homepage. You can go to the STEM section and there'll be a link to this resource there too. So as I scroll down, you can see there's a link to what's in the kits. So if we click on that, that'll take us down to where there's information about the 2 kits. And if I expand these, it'll show us that there's a link to the facilitator guide and a list of all the materials that are in the kit. There are also hyperlinks to each of the activities. So just like we were looking at the Jump to Jupiter activity earlier, if I click on one of these, it'll take me out to the website that has more information about either using this tool or doing this activity in your own library. And then it also shows you the books that are included with each of the kits. The cool thing about the NASA books is that they also come along with an audio version of the book and a text-only version of the book. So if you have someone who's using a screen reader, They could download the text-only version and have their screen reader read it to them, or they could access the audio version of it. Kit 2, Be a NASA Detective, again, has a link to the facilitator guide and a list of the materials and a link to all of the different activities and information about each of the books that are in there. If I scroll back up to the top, I can go to reserve a kit. And like I said on the slide at the beginning, all of the kits are booked through the summer, but there's plenty of time in October, November, and December to borrow a kit. And we will be supporting this program. The program period is through the end of the year. After that, we still might have the kits around available to borrow. We're still kind of assessing how we're going to do that. But here's a form that you go through and fill out. A couple of things you need to agree to as far as promoting the kit, filling out the survey at the end, doing the inventory checklist, and being nice and returning it so the next person can get it on time. There are a couple of options where you can fill in your first, second, and third choice for when you would like the kit. And myself and Nancy Reese, who is supporting the scheduling of the kits, we will do our best to give you your first choice, but your flexibility is appreciated. Let me go back to the main page. And I want to show you where there are some supporting materials that you've got access to. So training and instructional videos. If I expand this, you'll see that, again, there's links to each of the activities. And then this is also where you will find the overview videos that I was referring to. So we just watched the kit number 1 overview. There's also a kit number 2 overview. And then one of the great things about having Starnet as a partner with this program is that they do a lot of webinars. And of course, they're all going to be around space science. So what I have done is I have gone and made a list of upcoming webinars that they've made me aware of and put links to them here. You'll also see, though, that there's a link to archived recordings on the slides. So even if they aren't doing a presentation soon on a topic that's of interest to you, you can always go and have a look at the archived versions of the webinars and might be able to find some ideas in there of things that you might want to offer at your library. The next box I've got on here is promotional materials. And I know that coming up with flyers and posters is something that a number of libraries, if you're a solo librarian and you're only working 20 hours a week, you just might not have the time to be able to create promotional materials. So what I've done here is I've put up some of the flyers that are available to you that relate to space science. Some of them are specific to this program. Some of them are a little more generic. So just some places to kind of get started with promoting your events at your library. And then some suggestions of places that you might want to share that you've got an event coming up. And the last thing in this area is links to additional tools and resources that we've gathered that are going to help support you as you bring space science programming to your library. So the first couple that are on there are links to people that can help you with your programming at your library. So the Night Sky Network is astronomy clubs across the US. And then the second one is NASA Solar System Ambassadors. So the Night Sky Network is a way that you can get dialed in with astronomy clubs that might be in your area. And they have their contact information on that website. And so you can shoot them a message and see if they'd maybe be able to come to an event that you're thinking about hosting. The second one that's on there, the NASA Solar System Ambassadors, those are folks that have gone through special training from NASA and they receive weekly and monthly updates, and they're on phone calls where NASA shares events that are coming up on their calendar, and also new research that they're wanting to push out to the general population. So I highly encourage you to reach out to your solar system ambassador. I think there's about 10 or 15 of them in Idaho, so odds are there's one that's close to you. And part of their mission and part of their requirement of volunteering to be an ambassador is that they are required to do a certain number of outreach events every year. So certainly you reaching out to them would help them fulfill that requirement. As part of their training and connection with NASA, they also go through background checks. So I know that depending on your library environment, and if you're planning on offering something to little kids, that's something that can help ease your mind a little bit as far as inviting a guest presenter in. There's a couple of other links on there as far as the 50th anniversary. There's a link to a NASA selfie app that's a pretty fun tool, and the Universe of Stories from the Collaborative Summer Library Program. And then at the bottom of that box, there are links to places where you might find some programming ideas. So even if you can't get the kit from us, there are lots of resources out there where you can find programming ideas that you can still bring space science to your library. And a lot of these have really great supporting material, so even if you yourself aren't a space scientist, you can still bring space science programming to your library. So let me click back over to my slides. All right, and so talking a little bit about borrowing a kit, and then so when you get it, and then when you're returning it. So when you receive a kit, you will be sent it free of charge. We ship them via FedEx, so there's no cost to you in participating in this program. We'll send it to the address that you enter on that reservation screen I shared earlier, and each kit comes in a plastic tote that we're putting inside of a cardboard box to hopefully make it a little easier for you to move it around. And with the kit will come your return air bill, so make sure that you don't lose track of that. And it's also a good idea to inventory it when you get it, so that way you make sure that you've got everything upon receipt. So you'd go through all of that, you'd do your program, you'd promote it, and then on the returning end, you'd inventory again just to kind of make sure that all of the pieces are still in there. You'd fill out the online survey after your event. There are links on the website that I showed earlier. They are also in the calendar invite that Nancy will send you when she confirms that we have the kit reserved for you. And the URLs are also listed on the binder, that facilitation guide that comes with each of the kits. And then we also ask that you return it on time so the next library gets it for their full reservation time. What we've done is we've limited the borrowing period to 2 weeks, and then we add a week on the front and a week on the end to get the kit back here to replenish any of the consumables and to make sure that it can get on its way in a timely fashion to the next library that's going to be borrowing it. So a lot of folks are wanting to get in on the summer, the Universe of Stories, a summer reading theme. And that means that the kits were, I think, within the first month or two of announcing that the kits were available, they were booked solid for the summer. But I want you to feel empowered to create your own space science themed program that you are going to hold at your library. So there's a link again to the clearinghouse from Starnet Libraries. There's a wealth of resources there and inspiration. And if you wanted to kind of double up, you could even do an activity from the clearinghouse and then also invite someone from the Night Sky Network or see if one of the NASA Solar System ambassadors is available. There's also a link on the NASA at My Library page to recordings of astronauts doing story times in space, which are a lot of fun. So how cool would that be to find one of those recordings that is of a book that you have and to read along with participants at your story time while the astronaut is floating in space with Earth behind them. They're a lot of fun. So there's a lot of resources available to you, even if the kit isn't available at the time that you were hoping. And certainly I am here as a resource as well. So reach out to me if you have any questions about the program. If you're thinking about doing a program without the kit, I'm happy to be here to bounce ideas off of and find something that's going to be a good fit for your space and the event that you're planning on holding. So that is all I have. Are there any questions that people have at this point? I know that was a lot of information.
If you have a question, go ahead and type it in the chat box.
Mm-hmm.
That was great, Dina.
Thanks.
It was really fun to see all of those items in the kits.
There's a lot of fun stuff in there, yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Is anyone, okay, is the story time in space on YouTube or the, let me go grab that link really quick and I will share it in the chat box. Good question. So I have it on the additional resources part of the ICFL page. And it's called Storytime from Space, but I'll also, so there's the direct link to those. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So
Mm-hmm.
Dina
You're welcome.
Yeah. Does anyone else have a question for Dina?
Do any of the folks on the call have the kits reserved already?
You can either type or raise your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like we've got at least one library.
Okay.
Yay, somebody's got their hand raised. Awesome. Jean, you also have a kit reserved. Perfect.
Cool. Awesome. Those of you that don't have the kit reserved, do you feel that these resources are enough to help you feel like you could maybe run a space science themed program at your library? Yay!
That's good.
Cool.
And don't forget, as Dina mentioned, that Clearinghouse is a really just incredible set of resources.
Mm-hmm.
It's been out there for a few years, and I think they did a really exceptional job of getting library staff, educator, and scientist on board so that they're kind of approaching the content that they came up with really for those of us in libraries, but recognizing that some of us may not have the scientific background or perhaps even the educational experience to, make it such a relevant learning experience. So be sure that you look at that.
Yeah. And one of the themes that I really like that kind of ties all of this content together is that the idea isn't that library staff need to feel like they are a space science expert. It's more that one of the goals of the program is to help connect library staff with their local science experts which is why I'm really focusing on reaching out to astronomy clubs or solar system ambassador. If you live in a town that has a university or even like a natural history museum or local history museum, they might even have folks that work with them that would be interested in coming and doing a program with you. So don't feel like you have to be an expert with this material. Your job is to, I think, be excited and curious and to ask questions. So it looks like there's, what is a solar system ambassador? So a solar system ambassador is a program that NASA runs in conjunction with JPL and Jet Propulsion Laboratories, I believe, and they are folks across the US who receive special training from NASA and who, once they've gone through the initial training, are also kept up to date on activities and news stories that relate to space science. So they have kind of the inside line on missions and events that NASA is putting out there and new research that's coming out. So the way that the folks at Starnet described the NASA solar system ambassadors was that they're kind of like NASA in your neighborhood is the way that they described it, because there are solar system ambassadors across the state. So I think we've got like 10 or 15 here in Idaho. I know, it's pretty cool. Another thing I wanted to ask is, do any of you have 3D printers at your libraries? Cool. Well, NASA also has a series of models that you could try 3D printing. So those are things. I think they've got the rover on there. There's craters that you can download and print off, so you can kind of make your own tactile experiences for users at your library. I just put the link. It's the nasa3d.arc.nasa.gov/models there in the chat. Any other questions? Oh,
I was just going to ask the same thing.
okay.
Does anybody have any other questions? So Christy is not seeing the link to the NASA. Huh. Let me put it in.
Okay, thanks, Tammy.
Christy, can you see that now?
Goofy, okay.
Okay, great.
How many of you have iPads or tablets that you have available to use app programs at your library? Cool, so here is a link to the selfie app, which is how I took the picture of myself looking like I'm in a spacesuit.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to ask you to share how you got the cool photo.
Spoiler alert, I have not been in outer space. But it's a really fun app where you just take a picture of yourself on a blank background and it superimposes that astronaut outfit over you, and then you also get to choose what sort of celestial body you want to be in front of. That's really weird. So it seems like my links aren't coming through, Tammy, when I post them in the chat.
There's the link again.
Thanks.
Christy, thanks for letting us know about that.
Yeah.
Huh.
So as we move forward throughout the rest of the year, if you have any questions about using the kits or want to know, kind of brainstorm ideas of things, activities that you might do at events that you're having, please reach out to me. I'm here to make sure that we successfully bring space science learning to libraries across Idaho through the end of the year. And I think it's a really fun program, and I love the idea of kind of a program in a box, and hoping that that'll kind of make it easy point of entry for lots of people across the state to start kind of engaging with this content.
Well, that was great.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of good information there, lots of good links. We will have a recording of this webinar up on our website later today, as well as a location for the links that Dina shared. And I will go ahead and email it out to those of you that had registered for this. So if no one has any other questions, I just want to thank Dina. Thank you so much for your time, for sharing all this great information. And you guys have a great day.
Yeah, thanks for joining me today, everyone.